How's everybody doing today? Yes, you know what I do for a living, right? I'm in government. Okay, I'm the mayor of Parsippany Troy Hills. And you just heard everything I said. It's a dream I've wanted since I was 16 years old. And pretty much came true, but I had to work hard to get it. I don't want you to think it's not. But I'm going to explain a little about government to you. And you can ask me any questions you want afterwards. But Parsippany Troy Hills has a form of government called the Faulkner Act. Anybody know what the Faulkner Act is? Okay, I'll explain real simple. The United States government has a president, a House of Representatives, a Senate, and a judicial system. Well, Parsippany Troy Hill has the same form of government as the United States. I'm the executive branch of government. Then you have council members who are the legislative branch, and we have our own courts, judicial system. We all have separations of powers, which means I control the town, I run the town. The council creates laws, and then when the laws are created, I either sign off to pass them, I can do something else, that's called veto. You know what veto means? Right, what happens, there's two types of vetoes, conditional and unconditional. Unconditional means we'll take it back and they'll make some adjustments, but a conditional veto means that I won't pass it at all. I don't agree with the bill. That's what it means. So what basically happens is, we'll also have other forms of government in town called planning board and board of adjustments. And planning board is the board that you go to if you want to build a house, any type of construction in town. And there's a thing called the master plan that you get in the township, which means it's a master plan, there's a book about that thick, I've never read it yet, that pretty much tells you how you can build in Parsippany. And then the other board, which is very similar to the planning board, is the board of adjustments, which means if something's not in the master plan, it has to go to the board of adjustments for approval, which means they'll give them a variance and give them a break saying, okay, you can build a deck, but you can only build it this close to another person's property. So we always have checks and balances in government. Now, as the mayor of Parsippany, I deal with contracts, which means I deal with unions and have to, negotiate, what's happened to actually love doing, and the budget. I create the budget for the township of Parsippany Troy Hills. And when I get done, I present it to the council, and once it goes to the council's hand, guess what? It becomes their budget. And they decide if they want me to cut anything in the budget or not. And usually we have dialogue. If they ask me to cut something, I tell them why they shouldn't cut it. Because, I did my homework. I worked hard on it. I got it to as low as I could get it. But sometimes, you guys know how politics can be? Well, it can get very difficult sometimes. But I've been lucky so far for the first 2 years in office. And that's basically it. It's not really it. It's a lot harder than that. But I love what I do for a living, I have to tell you. When I became mayor last year, I was nervous because I came from the finance world into a different type of world, because now you're really accountable. And guess who you're accountable to when you're the mayor?
Everyone who retires now.
Absolutely, you're accountable. And you represent every resident in Parsippany Troy Hills. And you know what's nice about being mayor of Parsippany Troy Hills for me? A lot of those residents I graduated high school with, I'm friends with. And that's what makes it so rewarding, that you grew up in the same, you're in the same town that your children are growing up in. And it's really rewarding that way. But it's also difficult because sometimes residents or your friends disagree with you. But that's okay, because that's just part of the job. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the floor to questions, if you'd like to ask me any questions about government, about what I do.
Why do you enjoy your job?
I enjoy it very much. Is it stressful? Oh, yes, it is. Thank God when I got into office, I had no hair, because probably would have lost it anyway.
Does your job change often? If so, how do you update your knowledge and skills?
Well, that's a great question. It does update, because you have legislators that create new laws. So when those new laws come in, that's state legislators from the state level. When those laws come in, I have to educate myself on them, because I have to see how that law affects Parsippany, either in a positive way or in a negative way. So yes, I go to classes, I go down to Trenton for legislative meetings, for updates, and updates come almost every month. So yes, we do educate ourselves even further.
How do you think this career will change in the next 5 years?
Excuse me?
How do you think this career will change in the next 5 years?
Well, it's different every day, so it changes constantly. In the next 5 years, well, I'm glad you have confidence in me, because that means I'll be in my second term. So, but it changes, it will change. I'll tell you why it changes. We have new legislative laws in the state that says you can't raise a budget above 2%, which is, I'm not gonna get into all that now, and that makes it very difficult, which means there's gonna be some drastic changes in Parsippany.
Do you work with other people or mainly by yourself?
I work with a host of individuals. We have a team in Parsippany. I have a staff. I have department heads, one for Department of Public Works, which does your roads, your sanitation, your garbage. Finance, our controller, who does pretty much creates the budget with me, and the business administrator. We have so many individuals that I meet with pretty much on a daily basis. But one of the areas in Parsippany I deal with the most is police. Because when you become mayor in the Faulkner Act, you become director of the police. We have the chief, and I'm above the chief. And so I get briefed every day on what's going on in town, crimes or, things that are going on.
Can you describe your typical day?
A typical day, there's no typical day as mayor. But I would say the typical day, believe it or not, when I get up in the morning, one of the first things I do is I tour certain areas in Parsippany. I'll get in my car, I'll go to certain districts. We haven't broken down into districts. I'll look for potholes, I'll look to see if limbs are down, and then I call up each department head that would take care of that situation. That's what I try to do every day. But every day, I have meetings. I go from one meeting to another meeting to another meeting. So what I do is I have my own office, and then I have a mayor's chamber, and then I have a council chamber. So I set up each meeting in those areas, because I know I have to go from one to another to another. So it's constant. I don't get home almost every night till 10:30 at night. So I start early and I don't get home till about 10:30, so it's constantly moving around. Yep.
How many responsibilities does the mayor need to hold?
How many? Wow. That's a great question. I'm gonna tell you, almost every responsibility. Even if it's not my fault, it becomes my responsibility. I'll give you an example. Our school board budget is 67% of taxpayers' dollars, not private school. I'm talking about the public school. But by law, local government has nothing to do. We cannot be involved in school budgets and law. That's the law. Well, I get a phone call from a resident, calls me up, he says, Mayor, the taxes are really high. And it's because of the Board of Education. And he said, but I know you have nothing to do with that budget. But then I said, well, thank you so much, sir. And you know what he said to me next? Oh, no, I'm not done yet. Since you're the mayor, you own it. And every responsibility in town seems to become mine, but I don't mind that. Because if I have the responsibility, I'll take the responsibility on.
Can you live and work anywhere in the United States, or can your job only be done in certain places?
Well, as a mayor of Parsippany, you have to live in Parsippany. It can only be done here. I can't live in another state, town. I have to live in Parsippany. If I move, I have to resign. But you have to live in the town you get voted into.
Why did you choose your job?
Why? You want the whole story? All right. When I was in high school, I had a teacher named Steve Marabetti. Steve Marabetti was a deacon at St. Joseph's Church in Lincoln Park. He was also a teacher. And I met him when I was about 15 years old, and he was mayor of Lincoln Park at the time. So what I did was, I used to go to I had all his classes in history and politics, and I said, you know what, I want to be that one day. I wanted to be mayor. And when I left high school, I told him I was going to run for mayor one day in Parsippany, and I did, and twice, and I won the second time. And you know what, he called me up last year. He's retired now, but he called me up. He says, I cannot believe that you're the mayor of Parsippany. My goal, since a little boy, I wanted to be mayor, but you know what? You always have to have a backup goal, because trying to become mayor, no matter how hard you work, sometimes your dreams just don't come true there. But I worked hard to get it.